This is Moussa Kadri as the BBC presents him in the article they wrote about the matter, a lovely old man with a lovely old smile gently wafting across his lovely old face, the kind of man anyone could wish for as their uncle or grandfather. Moussa Kadri is an Islamic terrorist whose premeditated attempted murder of Hamid Koskin with a knife on the occasion of his offence taking at Mr. Koskin burning a Quran was only averted by the gentleman in question running for his life and defending himself. If he hadn't, he could very easily have been killed. I can't play the video on YouTube, but I've uploaded it to my Twitter in case anybody hasn't seen it. The link is in the description box of this video. If he had just stood there and not defended himself, he could easily have been killed. That this was a premeditated attempt is corroborated in the judge's sentencing remarks after he'd pleaded guilty to pretty much nothing of any great consequence. You were heard to issue threats to him, calling him a fucking idiot and telling him that you were going to kill him. You then returned inside your property. When you came back outside, you had armed yourself with a knife and you went to confront him. This was premeditated, obviously not months in advance with Al-Qaeda style planning, but it was premeditated. He was neither charged with this premeditated murder attempt, nor imprisoned for the radically reduced offence that he was charged with, which was possession of a bladed article and common assault, but he was simply charged £150, and that wasn't a £150 fine, that was simply the prosecution's costs, and that is £90 less than his victim, the man who he attempted to murder, was fined. £240 for the offence of upsetting him with his Quran burning. Here is a brief jump back to that. So, for burning a Quran, Hamid Koskin used disorderly behaviour within the hearing or sight of a person likely to be caused harassment, alarm or distress thereby, not who was caused such, but who was likely to be caused such. That's all you need. In that he set fire to a copy of the Quran and held it aloft while he shouted, "Fuck Islam," and Islam is a religion of terrorism and the Quran is burning, and at the time of doing so, and in doing so, he was motivated wholly or partly by hostility towards members of a religious group, namely followers of Islam, based on their membership of that group, for which the fine is £240. There was no fine for Moussa Kadri, just a suspended sentence and costs of £150. So, Mr. Koskin was recorded as shouting out, "Islam is a religion of terrorism." This is Judge Higglebottom's pen portrait of this Islamic terrorist. I note, however, that you are now 59 years old and someone of hitherto exemplary character. Those who know you speak extremely highly of you and observe that this behaviour is totally out of character. I note also the good works that you do, especially your work with charities. Turning to the mitigation, as I have observed, I note that you are a 59-year-old man of previously exemplary character. You are a loved husband and father, a hard worker, and someone who those who have written on your behalf cannot praise highly enough. You are relied upon as a carer and much respected in your work with charity. Obviously this is all dressed up with all the typical hyperbolic spray-on easy virtue that the so-called liberals and progressives love to telegraph to their peer groups to show them how virtuous and crucially how clever they are, how superior they are. But we can assume that behind all this saccharine bullshit, beloved husband and father, there is quite an element of truth to it. Exemplary character, charity worker, husband and father, care worker. How many cab drivers or kebab shop employees are at that level? Probably not so many. They're superior in character, better than those everyday Muslims you might see around you, became a completely demented, frothing at the mouth lunatic at the sight of a non-Muslim apparently desecrating his religion. So exactly what do those other morally inferior everydayers have cooking up inside them because of Islam, when this was cooking up inside this man of apparently exemplary character? You would have to think power kegs set to go off at a moment's notice. This is what the desecrating gentleman said. Islam was slighted, and it turned an exemplary man, it turned this exemplary man into a terrorist. Which leads back to this comment, part of the criminal conviction which came as a result of offending this terrorist. You decide. Add to that the fact that this terrorist received zero consequential punishment, sending a message to much lesser Muslims than he, as attested to by the judge, replete with all that hyperbolic saccharine bullshit, but with underlying truth to it, no doubt, that they will also receive zero consequential punishment if they attempt murder in that way and justify it with the claim that their cult had suffered blasphemy. Then add to that, finally, that by the end of the century, the country's population will be 4 parts British, 1 part Muslim, 20% Muslim, on the basis of current trends, which is a 3-fold increase in comparison with their current population size. Add all of that together, and you might consider that there might be a problem out there.